Bobby, you're such a pain in the ass. Jesus Christ.
I know. I'm sorry, John. I mean, you're right. I have no idea. I'm going to hop up and thank you for inviting me and say have a great time. I love these guys. I feel like I lost the award with the answers you just gave. So thank you for inviting me. I love seeing you, John. You guys have a good conversation and take care, everyone.
All right, buddy.
See you, man.
Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Damian Holbrook from TV Guide Magazine and TV Insider. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce this year's SAG Award nominees for Outstanding Male Actor in a Drama Series, Jonathan Banks, Jason Bateman, and Adam Scott. Guys, hello. How are you?
Hello.
All right.
Good morning.
I feel like there. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, for you guys, it's probably like, oh, but like for those of us that watch you, this is so exciting. Like, this is very cool, especially like people who have watched all of you over the last, 20 years or so to see you doing this and getting, the accolades it's very cool. So never forget that like your fans are very cool, very happy about this. I want to do because this is SAG, and also, there's a lot of young actors or people just coming up in the industry. I kind of wanted to focus a lot of the talk on the actual part of your life as actors. So for each of you, and we'll start with Jonathan, when did you first want to become an actor? And when did you first feel like you were an actor?
Pretty much since I could talk and walk, and ever since then. It's 55 years ago since I got my first paycheck in summer stock. And as far as you saying, oh, it's just another thing to you guys, you know what? No, it's not. It's wonderful. And it's also, but I've been around a long time, my friend. And not as old as God's dog, but I'm close.
What about you, Adam?
Yeah, I feel like it was really early. It may have been Raiders of the Lost Ark, and seeing that movie, I was a kid, and I just remember connecting with that and not being, of the age where I'm like, oh yeah, actor, I want to be an actor. But I just remember feeling and thinking, I want to do that. That looks great. That looks so fun. And from then on, whenever I had a spare moment alone, I was always pretending I was in a movie or TV show or whatever. And then when I had the chance to be in plays in school, and it was all I was interested in, and it's I'll double down on what Jonathan said and say it's nothing at all to us. I mean, this was a huge deal getting recognized by SAG. It's enormous for the show. And me personally, I remember watching the SAG Awards 20 years ago, and James Gandolfini won an award, and I remember him kind of standing up there and saying, like, just for those of you who are sitting at home and you're actors and you're struggling, just so you know, like before you know it, stuff can happen, and just hang in there. And I remember there was nothing going on for me, and I was struggling, just like he said, and it meant the world. And so just being anywhere near, Jonathan and Jason and Bob and Jeff Bridges, all these people, I can't, just being in a sentence with them is great. So it's a huge deal.
Cool. And now, Jason, around the same time that Adam was seeing Raiders of the Lost Ark, you were already probably on your third show, because you started off really young, right? Like you were a baby food commercial.
I remember that basically acting got started for me because I was running my mouth too much at school and kept getting kicked out of the class, and then consequently kicked out of schools. And then my parents and I kind of talked, and we figured, well, maybe there's a way to kind of channel this in a more productive way and maybe monetize it. So start reading for some comedies and see if you really are funny or if you're just disruptive. So that's kind of how that got started. And then like the first big job was Little House on the Prairie, and it wasn't make people laugh. It was make people cry. And I kind of stumbled into getting that done. And so then I felt like an actor. You know, like acting was kind of tangible for me then, and I feel so fortunate that I'm still able to, you know, feed myself doing it, because everybody here and everybody listening and watching knows how fickle it can be, and how unpredictable it can be, and that keeps you humble and it keeps you interested, and we take nothing for granted here, not the least of which is the recognition and the award. So I join them in a big thank you for the nomination.
You know, can I say something before we go on? Excuse me for interrupting, Adam, moderator. But, you know, I realize as Jason and Adam talk how many times our paths have crossed.
I was going to ask about that.
I did a Little House on the Prairie when Melissa Gilbert hit me with the wrong end of the pitcher and put stitches in my head playing a bad guy. And then we were together on Horrible Bosses 2, and Adam and I did I was a guest on Parks and Recreation. And and I go back with Bobby to, well, that's another story. Lauren, whatever the guy's name is. Yeah, no, never mind. I better not tell that story. But there was a woman involved, so yes.
Oh, that is for a different foundation. Jason and Adam, have you ever worked together?
I don't think we have, Adam. No. But we hang out a bunch. We're good buddies. But yeah, let's throw some collaboration on that friendship.
That's right. It starts here.
I'm going to email you a script right now, Adam.
Yeah,
okay, great. Let's do it.
I would actually like to see him in like Office Party 2.
I'm happy to read, Adam.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'll make a tape.
So
how about that?
So Jason said, you know, you first felt like an actor when you did Little House. What about you, Adam? When did you actually feel like, oh, this is something I am going to be able to do for a while?
I don't know. I think that, you know, it took a really long time for me to get real traction in show business, and I think that I sort of just kind of kept this idea alive in my mind that everything was fine and everything was going according to plan for years and years, and then when stuff actually started sort of coming together, I realized that I was walking on a tightrope made of dental floss for 15 years, and had been sort of through the people in my family who love me, and through my own sort of just kind of will kind of made myself believe that everything was okay. It's a really difficult business to keep all your balls in the air, and so I think that as far as like that moment of feeling like, okay, I'm doing this and I'm here to stay, I don't know if I've totally had that feeling, because it was such a piecemeal sort of career being put together over a long period of time, sort of frog in the boiling water sort of thing. But I think my first job getting a SAG card, which was a guest spot on an MTV show, it was a huge deal that I was getting paid and I got a SAG card. And
that was actually one of my questions, is when did you each get SAG card and what was it for? So what was the MTV show?
It was called Dead at 21. I'm sure everybody should hold for applause.
Jack Noseworthy.
Loved it. Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, Jack Noseworthy was a star. He's a terrific guy. Yeah, that was mine. That was my side card.
What about you, Jonathan?
I don't know what it was called. I got it through Equity in the early 70s. So if you remember of Equity, you could join SAG. And I came out on the road with something. And anyway, we stopped in Los Angeles and I got my SAG card.
And Jason?
I think it was probably a commercial because that was the sort of entrance level of jobs at the time. Probably still is. You get a bunch of commercials and you go for episodics and you go for pilots and you go for movies. And I mean, I think that's kind of at least what my agency was. Their tolerance of trust was that scale. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys watch your own shows?
I do, only because I learn a lot about what I shouldn't be doing by looking at my performances. What I'm doing too much of, what I'm doing too little of. Because for me, I remember basically what I was going for, and then I look and see how it comes across. And sometimes that has to do with an editorial rhythm. Sometimes it has to do with lighting or a choice of lens. If they're in a super wide shot and I was doing all my acting really small with my face, well, it looks like I'm doing nothing. And vice versa. If I think they're wide and I'm doing a bunch of mugging, well, that's too much. So just kind of learning how it's not just you. It's the other actors, it's the camera, it's the lighting, it's the editing. And so that helps me figure out how to kind of regulate my engine. But some actors, do very well never watching themselves, can't watch themselves, don't want to watch themselves. And I understand that too.
Adam, do you watch?
Yeah, I find it really helpful too. Though on Severance, I didn't want to see any of it until we were done shooting, just because I felt like I had enough to worry about without, breaking up any sort of rhythm or second guessing anything along the way. And then when we did finish shooting and I started watching cuts of the show, I was like, why didn't I watch this all along? I could have fixed so many things. So I think that from now on, I'll continue trying to watch as much as possible. I find it super helpful too.
And Jonathan, I mean, this is like now 10 years of watching you play this character almost.
Yeah. I mean, but other things too. I mean, I go back, I have mixed feelings about it. And mixed in the sense that if I've done too much, if I'm playing a character and I'm going away from Breaking Bad and just in a career, if I've done too much, if I have been twirling the mustache as a bad guy, it makes me crazy. I regret it so much. And I'm just going to say though, Adam, I don't know if you're directing now, but Jason is producing and directing, and there's much greater reason or another reason to watch. So the answer to that is I watch about half of what I do.
Well, you should treat yourself to watching the other half, because you're 100% great all the time. I've never seen you twirl a mustache. You got great taste.
I agree.
Thank you.
100%.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
And
So
Jason, you mentioned that you start off doing episodics, and Jonathan, you started doing a ton of episodics. And one of my favorite things is that, Adam, you started, I think was your first role in a Hellraiser movie?
My first role ever.
Yeah,
it was that Dead at 21.
Dead at 21. Okay,
but yeah, Hellraiser may have been my first movie I got a role in. I started really doing background work for a while before I got speaking roles. But yeah, I think you're probably right that Hellraiser 4 was my first.
You guys have been in the game for a while. Have you but you're now all in programs that I don't think anyone would have imagined being able to be on TV even halfway through your career. 10 years ago, I don't think people would have thought, oh, we're going to see shows like Severance, or a prequel series to Breaking Bad, which, like I think nobody expected to ever see. And Ozark, I don't think anyone ever imagined seeing Jason Bateman being this Midwestern monster kind of. So what is it like? What's that learning curve been like going from like, oh, the old days, which weren't that long ago, to these roles and these programs and this content that is so original and so unique?
Well, I mean, I was going to say it's probably applicable to all three of us that, we're just actors, looking to perform in things that we respect and like and might watch ourselves, and that would be great, but we'll do other jobs too, and it's like, well, these are the jobs that are happening now. There's really high quality stuff is happening on television, higher than I think to your point, what we thought might be out there 10 years ago. And there's more of it now. And that's really great for everyone watching, listening, and us here as well. So we're lucky to be in the business at this time. And I think we'll just keep being attracted to stuff that's the highest quality possible. But even if it's not, we'll do that too. And because this is our job and we need to eat and have shelter, and there's nothing wrong with anybody doing jobs that aren't, in the conversation for awards and stuff like that. We get it. All of us have done jobs that are not in the conversation, and those are just fine too. And you try to make them as best you can. And it's just we're just lucky to be working. Period. There's a lot of talented people and not as many shows or movies to service all of them.
Were you going to say, Jonathan?
Wow. The first, I have 1,000 thoughts going on right now, but the first thing that comes to my mind is anybody that would ever condescend, or one actor condescending to another actor about what they're doing, or even if they're thinking it and not saying it, they're fucking assholes. You got to go out there, and if you're lucky enough to get paid for something you love, we're not brain dead. There's things that we did, but I can almost guarantee that there none of these guys ever went into a job and didn't try to do their very best, whatever it was. Listen, and I'm not going to name some of the shows. Some of the shows that I did, but it was pretty much, if the camera didn't fall over, you printed it and you moved on.
Right. But you show up and do it.
And you do your absolute best. And I will say this, that there were some shows that I did that you'd show up though, and here I am condescending to it, but they were not the greatest. But at the same time, the way I was treated, the producers, the other actors, it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
It was, how do you ever address to young actors just how hard it is? I mean, it doesn't do much good for me to sit here and say, well, to my wife, how many times I've said, well, honey, I think we're going to have to sell the house. But I have. And then I hear myself say that, and I was thinking, but I was lucky enough to have a house. So, my idea of success many, many years ago, going back to the late 60s and the early 70s, was if I had enough money to pay rent for a year, I was doing really, really well. And I was. And there was not a bad standard. Anyway, enough.
Jason and Adam, you both became best known for comedy stuff. That was really like, I think if anybody were to say, oh, Parks and Rec or Arrested Development, or how difficult was it when you started to want to be considered for dramatic roles?
Well, when Parks and Rec, the comedy thing was sort of a fluke because I was mostly thought of myself and was mostly doing more dramatic. I mean, I didn't have a whole lot of going on, but I was more of a dramatic actor. And then just as a fluke, I got the role in Step Brothers, and that sort of just pointed me in this direction towards comedy for several years, which was terrific. And eventually ending up on Parks and Rec, which was, the greatest job imaginable, with Jonathan Banks playing my father. But then, when that ended, I did want to try and find something a little different, less comedic. And it took some convincing, and I sought out Big Little Lies and really wanted to try and get a role in that, and auditioned hard for that. And luckily, Jean-Marc Vallée was nice enough to end up hiring me. And I think that helped out. Just kind of showing that I could veer in a couple other directions as well. So I found it a little challenging, just because I wasn't thought of as much beyond, outside of the comedy bubble, for good reason, because that's where I was, and that's how I became as well known as I was. That's how it happened, was in the comedy world.
I've never blamed producers, studios, directors, audience members for being a little hesitant or reluctant to accept me or anyone else doing something different than the last thing you saw them doing. I mean, I'm an audience member too. You remember the last thing they did, and if that's comedy, and now you want me to believe that you're being dramatic, well, I don't know. And we could hire a different actor that doesn't bring that extra step to the game. And sometimes hiring is pretty arbitrary. So I get that there's that concern, and that part takes some, as Adam said, a little bit of lobbying sometimes, and some advocacy from good agents or managers, but as far as the acting stuff, Adam and Jonathan are both incredible at doing a style of comedy that I attempt to do as well. I think we try to play it real. We try to play it that we're not in a comedy, that it's deeply dramatic to us, and that's kind of what makes it funny, that these characters are taking it so seriously, and so we play our comedy pretty close to the median between comedy and drama. In other words, we're never the guy telling the joke, we're the guy reacting to the joke. And the same way in drama, we're usually not the guys with the knife, we're the guys running from the knife. So we're not the polarity, we're kind of in the middle there. And so the pivot to dramatic acting is not too far removed, for me at least, from what I try to do in comedy, which is just kind of stay real and react, to the situation.
And now, Jonathan, after so many years of playing Mike, are you looking to either take a break, or do you want to consider hey, maybe I'll do a half-hour comedy?
Oh, well, of course I'd consider doing a half-hour, but I'm doing something with Nuit Rapace for the last 8-9 months, and we're filming in Germany and Finland, and they've changed the name a few times, but it'll be on Apple. It's called Cosmonauts, and I play two different characters. One a lot closer to Johnny Banks, who's a little has a rougher edge, and the other one who's a little more effete. But so that's one. It's a
nice way to shake things up. And Adam, so talking about you've got this, you got Severance, you got Loot, and you have Party Down coming up. Do you have a process of shaking off one character before taking on another? Because it feels like this was almost were there any overlaps?
Shooting the shows?
Yeah.
No, not really. We did Party Down about a year ago. Funny story, just really quick. When I first got the role in Party Down 13, 14 years ago, I remember talking to some friends of mine, just talking about the role and just saying it's going to be a really funny show, but I'm trying to figure out how to do it. I'm in the middle of it, reacting to everyone. And I just have to figure out how to do that without stepping on anyone's jokes and also trying to, facilitate. I was just sort of trying to just navigate what I was going to do. And the friend I was talking to said, "Oh, you mean like Bateman in Arrested Development?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And so having watched all of Arrested Development, I think it was still on, it was such a key in to what I should do. And so it was so handy just being able to look and see how it's done.
You're very nice.
So just, no, there wasn't much overlap, but I like staying somewhat busy. So it was nice to get to do. And Party Down didn't take long. We shoot it really quickly, so just like a month and a half. Or something.
Wow! Okay, I've seen it. It's great. I got to see
thanks.
the episodes.
Thank you.
And Jason, you've been doing a lot of directing, and not just on Ozark, but you also directed a couple of those episodes of The Outsider, which was phenomenal. Do you feel your focus is moving more towards that?
I mean, not that I dislike acting at all. I still love it as much as I ever did. It's just, and I'm sure Adam and Jonathan will agree, you spend the amount of years that we've spent on sets, you absorb a lot of things, and you gain an appreciation for, how this fake life thing is kind of done. It's sneaky tough. And so to have the privilege of that position, that is the sort of person with the plan and can answer some questions and fix some problems because you understand multiple lanes and departments, it's just using a lot more of what I've absorbed over the years than just the acting part. And I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment. So my dream is to act and direct in the same thing, because it kind of gives me one hand on the wheel in front of the camera and one hand on the wheel behind the camera. And you can really try to more specifically shape what that experience is for the audience, tonally at least, because you're the face of it, and you're also guiding the other things that support that. So I don't know. I just kind of like that mix a bit there. So looking forward, and but not at the expense of acting as well. I enjoy both.
So you touched on it earlier on about the nomination and that it does mean something. And there's something kind of important, I would think, for anyone who's been nominated or is nominated, because it's such a great message to send to young actors or people coming up, watching the shows like you guys had, and thinking like, okay, this is doable. And it's also, it tells them there's a community that they can be a part of, because you guys are nominated by your community of actors, which is something I think a lot of actors seek when they're coming up, right?
Yeah.
I think you'd always want people who understand what it takes or what you're trying to do to be some of the people that go, I think what you're doing is really worthy of recognition. I mean, that has some weight to it for sure. But I'll bet you Jonathan and Adam would agree with this, that while and it's been said before, so I apologize, but we're not playing the same role, so it's really not a competition. Who played that role best? We're all playing different roles, so how can you compete? Really, what is fantastic about any kind of recognition for me are two things. One, it shines a light on the work of everyone else in that project. People may watch that show or that episode and they see all the other acting, they see the camera work. So it's great for the whole project and the team it takes to make it. And then it also, speaking to our earlier point about just being lucky to have a job, it helps to continue to get employed. It's a really nice thing to have on your resume or in your momentum and moment of relevancy. It's helpful to continue to get work. That's the competition part is, I'm not sure what to do with that, but there are two really, I think, admirable aspects to it, those I mentioned.
I think also there's something really lovely about it being the Screen Actors Guild and the acting community. I've noticed going and talking to SAG members the couple times we've gotten to go to these screenings where afterwards we talk to the SAG members, and it really does, in a way, it feels different than any of those, any other kind of showbiz events, because you are speaking to actors, to SAG members, and it almost feels like a group therapy. There's like a direct emotional line from us to the SAG members in the audience. We know how it feels. They know how we feel. It's a very unique occupation, and I know precisely how it feels to be struggling and going from job to job and not knowing exactly where the next one is coming, and just sticking it out and trying to figure out, and just trying to figure out how it's all going to come together. And the only thing that I figured out is just not leaving, just not stopping, and just being around and being available to because I just saw friends go back from acting school, just one by one, go back home after a couple of years here and there. And so to be able to go and talk to SAG members, and we all know exactly what we're talking about and exactly how each other feels, has been.
And isn't it very tangible in those settings?
Yeah.
How, were it not for the job you're on stage talking about, you'd be sitting in their chair.
Totally.
Like, there's no difference between
That's right.
us and them, but for this one job. And so
that's right.
Hopefully that they feel that as well, and are buoyed by that. And they know that tomorrow they can get a call from their agent to audition for a particular job that they happen to get. And that job happens to be watched by the folks in this town that make things go. And now all of a sudden you've got relevance and 10 years ahead of you of employment. That's right. It's somewhat arbitrary, and hopefully people who are feeling a little kind of beat down or worn out can get that real sense that it's just one job away, if that job happens to be embraced by the community.
That's right.
I think it, even for me, it goes beyond the SAG, that those people out there, you have to be very good. I don't know if it's correct that you have to be lucky, but I'm almost 100% sure it is. That I think about the years that I might have auditioned for a pilot, and I knew a couple of the other guys in the room, and I was lucky enough to get the job. They were good. But to the young actors, I think there are a lot of us that it's really true. And you say, what in the name of God, what else could I possibly do? This is what consumes me. This is what I love. And then I think about my friends who are my age, who have had careers, and all of a sudden they didn't make enough money that year to get their insurance. What we enter into is, you use the metaphor, a tightrope made of dental floss. Whoa. What a world. And for me, I got to tell you, and I'll just drop this in there, I never wanted to do anything else. When I was really little and I would watch Jimmy Durante, you guys weren't born, but in the early 50s, there'd be this broad comedy. And then all of a sudden he'd walk out into 3 spotlights. And in the final spotlight, he'd tip his hat and he'd say, "Good night, Mrs. Calabash," wherever you are. I was a little kid. I had no idea what that meant, but I knew, and I wouldn't have known the word poignancy, but it meant, I thought, I want to do that. I want to make people really laugh, and then I want it to be poignant as well. And yeah, and it took me. Listen, I was ready to join the service, and I was always thought that theater was for the smart kids in school. And I had the woman who directed the plays yell down the hall at me, "Banks, you're a chicken." She said, "I see you looking through that window all the time watching us rehearse. Why don't you audition for a play?" And I did. I did. Anyway, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Also, really strict theater people. Directors at my school were like, all right, whatever. You guys have also mentioned your cast and the people that you've worked with, and all of your shows are also nominated for Ensemble, which is that's got to be so cool to get like the show, like the show recognition, the performance recognition, but also to get to share it with your cast. How did you guys connect with your cast when the nominations came out?
Go ahead, guys.
We're shooting now, so I think we all saw each other at work, or I think we all saw each other at work or somewhere, and it was maybe a text chain. I don't remember. But I know we all kind of talked about it and we're all excited about it. But it was probably at work.
You're lucky you were working.
Not a great story.
You got to probably hug in the makeup trailer, right? Some awkward hug while someone's in the chair.
That's right.
We're all done, so we're relegated to just a text chain and phone calls and FaceTimes and stuff like that. And we're really looking forward to having a chance to see each other again, ceremony or parties or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean ours were all emails and text chains and phone calls. Yeah.
And what is it like inside the room at the show when you've got, it is a room of actors, from film and television, very much like the Globes, I guess, but like, what is it like? What is the energy like when it is a bunch of actors who are there supporting one another?
Wonderful. Wonderful. You guys go ahead. Well, I won't. I'll go ahead and say it. I'll tell you the best thing that ever happened to me at the SAG Awards. Oh, Christ. James Gandolfini had passed, and we had gone to the after party, and, there are booze there, and a tap on my shoulder, and there was this little kid tapping on my shoulder, and he said, "Mr. Banks, may I take a picture with you?" And I said, "Sure, kid, come on," and did. I said, "What's your name?" And he told me his name. It was Gandolfini. It was his son.
Wow.
The best.
And is that the son that grew up to play him in the movie?
Yep.
Wow. And Adam and Jason, I'm assuming that you, like, when you're in there, it's like you've worked with so many people after all these years. Is it just like, are you racing from table to table?
Yeah, it's a combination between seeing people that you know and you love and saying hi for the first time in a long time, and then also kind of sheepishly going up and doing what Jonathan experienced, which was tapping some hero on the shoulder and saying, hoping that they're gonna be as great as you hope they were. It's a real fan fest in there. Everybody you ever want to meet is in there.
Yeah. It's really, really fun.
I have to wrap you guys, but before that, who are you fans of? Company excluded. Who are you fans of? Who were you watching this year that just blew you away?
All right, I'll start. And for me, you know what? I'm a little man, and my jealousy factor can be off the charts. But hopefully I laugh at myself for my jealousy over many, many years. And then I turn around and I look, and I am just overwhelmed by performances and how many good actors there are. And I'm a great audience. I lose myself in what I'm watching. So who do I think is really great? It's you got another hour. I could go down the list. I really feel that way.
I was really taken with Brendan Gleeson this year with
A good guy, by the way. He's a great fucking guy. Yes.
It seems like it. Yeah.
Wait, have you watched him in State of the Union with Patricia Clarkson?
No.
Unbelievable. Absolutely different than anything you've ever seen him. It's amazing. He's incredible.
I'll check
That's
that
a
out.
TV show, correct?
Yeah, and like every episode is like 12 minutes long. It's fantastic.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
What about you, Adam?
Noted.
I also love Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell and Banshees of Inisherin. Really just such a great movie and so much fun to watch. I've now watched Tar a couple of times to watch Kate Blanchett and what she's doing in there. It's just unbelievable. I mean, they're like Jonathan said, I'm a really good audience member and I watch everything. And I wish I had the list in front of me so I could just pick out the people I love. And there's so many. It's like Jason was saying earlier, we're in a time right now, we're really lucky as actors and artists and like Jason, filmmaker, but also as audience members, we're really lucky because there's just this abundance of unbelievable work happening on television and in movies.
Yeah, it is. It's been great. And I want to thank all of you. This has been fantastic. And just as you were talking about him, I was like, oh yeah. So Ozark gave us Julia Gardner, who like just was like, what? And Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, Ray Seahorn. It was just like,
yes.
Oh my God. And Adam,
Incredible.
Britt, I have been waiting for the world to get on board with Britt Lauer for so long.
She's so great.
Good and so watchable. Great. So I was so excited to see her on the show because it is like you said, there's all these great shows now that gives you guys a chance to work with all these actors that are just like, you're bringing them to us and I love it. So yes, thank you guys so much.
And before we go, I just wanted to say to you guys, you know, I can, for whatever reason, nervous. We're all going to be talking at once. I was thinking, oh Christ, this is taking up the whole day. But not mostly. I was nervous. I was a little scared, a little this, a little that. And what a pleasure this has been to hear you two talk. I got to tell you, it really has been. Thank you.
Well, back at you,
man.
Back at you.
Absolutely.
And Odenkirk just pulled up here at my house.
He was picking up Jeff Bridges. All right. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much. On behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I want to thank you for sharing your experiences, your process, and your craft with your fellow performers and with me and everyone watching. So thank you guys so much, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Thanks
guys. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Jason.
Bye, guys.
Bye.